hopefully are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Anybody wants to share the shows, now's a good time. Got your links, and I think I got a confirmation on
Twitter, yes.
Facebook, yes.
LinkedIn, yes.
all righty. We's good. All right, this is Gillmor gang. About to start. Mute is off. Let me get you positioned here, Steve. All right, mute is off, and we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi. I'm Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor gang. It's a Sunday.
it's a rainy Sunday.
Well, you can't tell here in California because it's all white.
Yeah, which means fall. Yeah.
That is not a demographic remark.
No, the skyline, there is none.
So the voice you just heard, welcome to Keith Tier. Welcome, Keith.
I'm happy to be here, and I will tell you that the blue is poking out of the white here in Palo Alto, so you may get some sun later today.
There's hope for us all. All right.
Also joining us is from the state of mind of Atlanta, Georgia, or thereabouts, is Brent Leary. Welcome, Brent.
Thank you for the warm and heartfelt welcome.
That what that was?
Pat, please. Pat. Thank you. Okay.
How come I don't get to see what you're seeing, Tina? I guess I never do.
No, you never do. Okay, next person, Steve. Hello. Or do I need to take over? Because we're just like looking at you, kind of like.
He's clearly
there.
distracted today by something.
I'm looking at the game. Is that the Mets?
Yeah, who's the Mets? It's the
Miami.
That
the
Miami.
other New York team,
San
the Giants.
Francisco.
Hasn't been the Giants in over 60 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
There's a rule in New York. Whatever the team is has to rhyme with Mets. Mets, Nets. What else is
Jets.
that? Jets.
It's
Yankees.
Pets, Tets.
You said
Okay.
pets, right? I just
So
wanna make sure.
joining us from London is Frank Radis.
Steve, Tina, hi there. Hello, gang. It is just starting to get dark here after a very long and exciting 70th Jubilee celebration for Her Majesty the Queen.
Ah,
Here, here.
yay.
Where?
There.
She
There,
had
there.
Led Zeppelin live at Buckingham Palace last night.
Whoa.
What
Really?
does that mean? That's not true.
Yeah, they played live. They opened up the Palace, had a big festival, including rock, and Led Zeppelin were one of the acts.
Yeah, so is Elton, right?
Yeah.
Elton, Diana Ross, for some reason. She's British somehow.
And then they sang Sweet Caroline, and it wasn't Neil Diamond.
Oh, really? Was that during the 7th inning stretch of the cricket game?
Yeah. But it got a lot. I mean, it was okay. It was okay.
For some reason, it's become the song in English soccer games that the fans sing. I have no idea how that happened. It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, wow.
Well,
In general, it doesn't make any sense.
the Red Sox owner owns a team that might have,
Liverpool.
yeah,
So
cut across the ocean.
welcome to Dennis Pombriant.
Greetings, gangsters. It's wonderful to be here, especially to be here and not in Miami, where flooding has been taking place due to that storm.
Oh.
Miami is not a good place to. Miami Beach is horrible when it floods.
Yes.
Okay, and rounding out the gangsters is Michael Markman. Welcome, Michael.
How do you do? The weather in Seattle was raining this morning, not raining now, raining this afternoon.
Who knew?
It may even start while we're recording.
So did everybody get an introduction? Keith?
Yes.
You got me first, Steve, but I know you're very distracted with something, so you probably forgot by now.
I'm not distracted. This is just how it is. What it be? All right. Let's just give the handoff to Brent Leary. What's on your mind, Brent?
Well, the first thing that really just came to mind is we need to wish a belated birthday to Dennis Pombrant.
Happy birthday, Dennis. When was it?
The second. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Birthday, Dennis. Woo!
Happy birthday, sir.
In honor of the big day, I blew up my Tesla deal.
What
Oh,
is
did
that?
you blow it up? Did you blow it up?
I did.
And are you going to replace it with a different electric car, or just going to stick with what you got?
Eventually, I'll get an electric car, but the Tesla deal is dead.
Why?
I know, I'm becoming an expert. I now have 3 electric cars because there are 4 drivers in our house and 2 cars didn't cut it. So we have a
Yeah.
3rd car.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about gasoline. I killed the deal yesterday because when I went to pick up the car, they had changed the dollar amount that was owed. After
That was the Twitter surtax.
I thought it was. I thought we had a contract. Silly me. And,
How big a change?
oh, it was minuscule. It was minuscule, but they. It was so sleazy. They changed the top line. You know, so you get the top line, and then you deduct the trade in, and you maybe whatever else. So, and they leave you with the amount financed, and you know, all of that stuff. So the amount financed did not change, but they increased the top line, and they said, well, thank you for this big check. You need to give us a few more dollars. Can we take it out of your bank account right now?
Oh
And
my.
I said no. I said we had a deal. We did this. So long story short, we didn't do the deal.
I think long story short is don't mess with Dennis Pombria.
Well,
That is the word I would like to get out.
represents, a certain, Dennis represents a certain part of the user population, if you will. Don't you think that might have some impact?
You mean Elon has
I'm
been
not
watching
going to
us on the
use-
Gillmor gang? And
Well, I don't know whether Elon's watching, but you know, what's the purpose of tweeting out a bad review of customer service, for example? Who are you talking to there?
Well, I don't know. I don't have a Twitter account, so I'm not planning on it.
Right, but I was just trying to relay it to everybody else who does have a Twitter
Hmm.
account.
Yeah,
Anyway, so
Yeah.
how long were you waiting for this deal?
3 months.
Boy, if I had a Twitter account, I would absolutely slam it.
So
To what end?
So they didn't change the invoice at all, but they
Make me feel
called you
better.
and said they wanted more money from you.
That's right. That's right. They didn't change the financed amount because they would have had to do another credit check. Instead, they just said, "Hey, give us some more money."
When I got solar,
And you got no advance notice. Just when you showed up, that was it.
Well, you know,
There was no notification along the way saying, because of blah, 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 we're going to blah, blah, blah.
No. What? See, the way Tesla works is you do everything through the website.
Right.
So I came to a set of numbers with them on the phone, and it was reflected on the website with a top line, a financed amount, a trade-in, the whole thing. It all zeroed out. And somewhere in the last few days, the top line increased. Nobody sent me an email and said, "Hey, we need this," or anything else. I just showed up at the dealership and I got this pie in my face.
Well,
So basically, just to fill in, I can fill in here. Tesla has increased the prices of each of its cars pretty much every month for the last 6 months, as a reaction to the fact that all the non-Tesla dealers are doing these markups. And Tesla doesn't do markups like above MSRP because there's no dealers. So the beauty of Tesla is no dealers. So you're not dealing with the middleman. The negative is they've reacted to the market by they keep increasing the top line price so that they're still competitive, but they're getting more for the car than they originally thought they could get for it. And that's what's happening. And I'm surprised.
I don't think so.
Well, it may not be what affected you, Dennis, because maybe they lock a price, but they have been doing that.
You know,
Well,
regardless,
they didn't
it
lock
sucks.
the price in. They didn't lock the price in. And by the way, sometime early this year, they dropped the price of the Model S.
Yeah, that's true as well. But
So-
you can't get a Model S. You have to buy the Plaid version, which is like 160K if you want one.
I don't know. I think you can get a standard Model S for around 70, 80. I don't know.
No, but they don't have any. If you go to their web, by the way, I just noticed that you're a Gemini, and it says here on Google, if you Google June 2nd star sign, it says Geminis born June 2nd live more through their emotions than their intellect.
I'm afraid so.
and ergo, if he had a Twitter account, I would say he probably would tweet about the bad customer service and getting ripped off to the tune of whatever he got ripped off to. In answer to your question, Steve, who would that serve? That would serve me, and that would be enough.
Yeah. If Tesla knew he was a Gemini, they never would have done this to him.
Well, they would have tried to sell me 2 cars.
I think that what they are assuming is that most people will say, "Oh, okay," because they're so embedded in the idea of getting this thing that what's another X dollars.
Yeah, buy the Mercedes.
But
Well,
the auto market is a really good prism on how messed up everything is. The supply chains, pricing, supply and demand, price gouging, you name it. The car market is like the extreme version of everything that's bad in the economy.
it's a jungle, baby.
Yeah.
Well, be that as it may, I'm not even thinking of that. What I'm thinking about is the sanctity of a contract and literally the slippery slope. How can I do business with a company that would do what it did on the price of the car, knowing that in 5 years maybe I'll have a warranty issue that I'll need to go back on? What are they going to do then?
Yeah. Well, they're not known for good customer service due to the fact that, well, the supply chain constraints coupled with the fact they don't have a dealer network means you're relying on them. So that's one of the weak sides of their model. But I mean, ultimately, it seems to be working. You don't hear enough complaints to suggest it isn't working, although you do hear some.
You could hear some. Keith, what you're saying is very interesting to me, because last week I wrote an article about customer service and Tesla. It'll be out next week or in a few days, and it strikes me that Tesla is right now in a condition where a lot of tech companies have found themselves, where they did well with the early adopter market. When it came time to transition to the early majority, they fail, and they end up being superseded by a late starter. I saw that in my home market of CRM with Salesforce eating Siebel's lunch, and I see the same potential in the car market, because the companies that are coming out with electric cars in the next year or two, companies like Ford and General Motors, are companies that have extensive dealer networks. And yeah, they know how to build cars, but they also know how to deal with customers. And that seems to be the Achilles heel for Tesla.
Did you write this article before or after the deal blew up?
Before.
He's re-editing it now with grievance.
I sent it to Steve. I'm not touching it. It's going out the way it was written. And it was written, I think, conservatively.
Yeah.
I think your point about the dealer networks is really an important one to talk about customer relationships.
Yeah.
Well, but Ford just announced definitively, it's been in the air for a while, that they are not going to have dealer networks for electric vehicles. So basically, they're going to end around the dealers direct to the consumer, getting rid of the markups, and they're going to allow the dealerships to provide service if they want to, but electric vehicles, to be honest, there is no service really, unless something goes drastically wrong, which is rare.
No undercoating, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So this
think
sound
about
cloud,
this though. Think about this though. It's not that they're getting rid of the markups. It's that they're getting rid of aggressive discounting.
Both. They're getting rid of both. Yeah. In the current market, it's the opposite, but yeah, you're right. Normally it's discounting. And also it means they can rationalize their cost base massively. If you can do what Apple does with laptops, on cars, obviously, you get their thing in saying it's on a boat from Shanghai and it'll be with you on June 27th or whatever. That's their ideal, to be Apple when it comes to supply chain delivery and customer service.
Sure. You can't blame them, because an electric car is a much more reliable product, just because it has so many fewer moving parts. There's so many fewer parts, period.
Yeah.
So I think
Fewer.
even a mediocre manufacturer is going to be able to make a quality electric vehicle.
so
Finally get it.
you're saying Ford is a mediocre manufacturer?
I'm not saying that explicitly, but I'm saying, at least hypothetically, anybody should be able to make an electric car.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I mean,
the bet is, as I understand what you're saying, the bet is that in a year or two, you'll be able to buy an alternative to what you're not buying now.
You could do
Apple.
it. You could do it right now. I've been online looking at a lot of different cars, and I mean, Keith, you've got 3 electric cars. None of them is a Tesla, right?
I've got the Kia EV6, which you can get. There are some in stock here and there, but all the dealers, there's Facebook groups, by the way, for these cars, and you can see what's going on in the Facebook groups. It's one of the really good things about Facebook. There's all these owners groups. Then I've got the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which you can buy if you buy the GT version, but you can't get the lower price versions because they're just not there. And then I've got the newest one is the Mercedes EQS, which is available at the lower end actually, but not at the higher end.
Yeah. I've been looking at the Kia, so maybe we could take it offline. I'd love to get your ideas.
Yeah. You can't go wrong, to be honest. They're all great.
Yeah. So
Well, they're not all great, because evidently Tesla is not great.
Well, I don't think he's talking about the car, is he?
no, he's talking about the human interface.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll tell you the one.
When we were talking, Keith, I'm sorry, Dennis, when we were talking offline about this, you said something about a term, the whole something.
Whole product.
Yes. Can
Whole
you explain
product
what
is-
that is?
Well, it's a term that we bandied about in CRM quite a bit 15 or so years ago. It was first coined by Regis McKenna, and it simply refers to the cluster of things that includes the product, but it also includes policies, procedures, customer service, all of the things that you deliver to a customer to support their purchase. And frankly, aside from the core product, which is what early adopters buy. Early adopters don't get whole product. They don't feel like they need it so much. But when you go to the early majority and the consumer market, consumers want to be able to buy something, turn it on and use it. They don't want to run a lot of experiments with it. So my point to you the other day was that we're in a transition from early adopter to early majority, and to get over that hump, you need to have whole product.
Right. And that was my point in bringing it up just now. Is it sounds to me like whole product is what you're talking about, not the car, as opposed to the service. It's a whole product.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'd say that's right.
And that I think they're all lacking there, to be honest. The Kia has a recall on it right now for it turns out it's got a fault. It's rare, but it can suddenly go into neutral when parked and start rolling backwards if it's on a hill. So there's
better than on the highway.
Yeah. So anyway, there's a recall on it, but none of the dealers have the supply chain from Kia in Korea to be able to fix it. So they're basically queuing you up and saying, make sure you don't park on a hill, or if you do, turn your wheels in.
Not good for us in San Francisco.
You know what's really interesting? We had when I was growing up, we had a '64 Chevy that did the same thing, and we found it across the street a couple of times.
Anyway, so none of them, to be honest, none of the new electric vehicles have got the supply chain and the whole product that Dennis describes yet. But the actual product, like if you compare the Tesla seats, which are kind of rigid and plasticky, to, let's say, the Ford or the Kia, which are more like traditional, mid to higher end cars, the physical buttons in the Kia and the Ford compared to only software in the Tesla's removed the brake. It's removed the reverse. It's kind of using AI to know that you need to go into reverse. So if you're an anxious kind of a person, the Tesla is going to make you more anxious and not very comfortable. So it really is a version 1, even though they've been at it a while. It's a version 1 from a quality point of view, and it's a kind of a leading edge from a software point of view. If you get into a Kia or a Ford, you're going to find familiar buttons, knobs, and switches, as well as software. And it'll be up to you whether you're mainly a software person or a physical button person, which seems like a trivial thing.
The problem with that analysis for me is, when will we get to that place when there's something, an alternative? And I don't hear a real day.
Apple, it's going to be Apple. It's going to be Apple is my bet. And it's going to be, I would guess 5 years from now, not 3.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Wow.
How about that Apple TV? How's that going for you?
It's a little black box that plugs in via HDMI. It's great.
So they've conned you into believing that there's no screen equals success.
I definitely think Apple's right not to make a screen. Although this screen I'm on now is the new Apple Studio display. It's pretty nice, I've got to say.
So it's the whole product. In this case, it's the hardware suite.
Well, I've got rid of, if you look at my desk now, my desk used to be like Brent's desk. I had an ATEM Mini. I had this microphone used to be my microphone. I had a kind of a Roland, not Roland. What's that thing with the colored lights, Steve, that you and I both bought? The
Roadcaster.
Roadcaster. My desk is now pretty much clear. All I've got is the Apple Studio and the display, and I've got a clean desk. And quality-wise, you're probably not going to notice much difference.
That's what we were saying earlier.
Sorry.
By the way, Keith, there's the
Right.
Roadcaster Pro 2 is out. So
I saw that and I didn't buy one because I already sold my version 1. I thought, fool me once, that's on you. Fool me twice, that's on me. Did you buy one?
no, but since we brought up Apple and WWDC is what, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
There was a rumor, although I don't know how strong it is, that they may announce they're going to do their own search engine.
Mm.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that on your show a couple days ago. And can you summarize what you think? What is the reason for that? Is that just people trying to take the last mile out of the $1 billion a year that Google pays for access to the hardware on the Apple line?
I think Google pays $15 billion a year to be the default search engine. So if they're going to forego $15 billion to create their own search engine, that must tell you that if it does happen, because I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but just think of how much money they must be thinking they can make if they're willing to forego $15 billion just written off each year by Google to pay them to be the default search engine.
Well, that might be an entry into the discussion about where the value is in first party, third party.
That's definitely it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so is that where
privacy is such an essential part of Apple's brand, and they're really leaning into it. And the search engine is one of the big glaring holes in their privacy wall.
Yep.
You know, it makes me think about the access to the search engine through Siri, which is a privacy issue.
Oh,
Well, look. Before we even go down there, I do think Steve's right to contextualize it in the context of cross-site cookies and privacy and all that. It is that. That said, I don't know about you guys, but I would not be optimistic about the quality of a search engine produced by Apple.
why?
compared to
Yeah.
Google, right?
The App Store, just go and do a search on the App Store and see how good they are at search.
But
That's
you know
true.
that a couple of years ago they used to say that Apple had no business being in the services industry because they didn't have the capabilities. Well, the last I looked, their services industry is now what, 20 to 30% of their revenue.
Yeah,
what's included in that?
Competent, they're doing pretty well.
No, they.
When you're at the revenue scale of a company like Apple, your capabilities are not fixed. You can buy capabilities, and they clearly are investing.
They can throw money at the
people
problem.
who know how to do things that the people who are there don't know how to do. And that's how they get those
But
capabilities.
then those people
Look at the state of Apple Maps.
let me respond to what you just said. If they acquire, then those people are part of the company.
I agree. But what I'm saying is that if you look backwards and say, well, they don't know how to do this, you're missing the fact that they can buy how to do this.
I agree. I never said that they couldn't do this. As a matter of fact, I keep investing more and more in their services.
There's a deep challenge, which is where deep tech meets user experience, where you can buy deep tech expertise, Michael, I agree with that. And they've got user experience expertise. That's one of the things they excel at. In the middle, where the two glue together, it's hard to find anyone that's really good at that. And so what you usually end up with is Siri, where Siri is a decent front end. You can speak to it, but the search results suck. It's highly limited compared to, say, Google Assistant. Google Assistant has a much worse user experience, but way better results. And so you've got deep tech expertise, you've got UX expertise, but putting it all together into a whole product, to use Dennis's phrase, is challenging, even for Apple.
Amazon's doing all right with it, with their Amazon voice devices, I think.
Well, Apple
compared to Siri.
My experience is
this whole conversation
more and more annoying to use as time goes by.
Yeah,
This
I
whole
think that's true.
competition is pointing in the same direction from a lot of different perspectives, and it is the whole product. Is whole product the Gordian knot of the tech industry today?
It's funny, my startup, we call ourselves a vertically integrated fintech company because we want the whole stack. We want the money, we want the data intelligence, and we want the relationships. And we don't want other people owning any piece of it. And I never thought of this whole product phrase before, but I think intuitively that's kind of where I lean anyway.
Well, that's why you have to get in your time machine and go back 15 years to a CRM world.
But the
No,
whole
just Google
product
me. I've written
idea,
about it.
but the whole
What?
product idea wouldn't have included consumer data privacy and ethical use of data until this last couple of years with Apple kind of raising the profile of that. I mean, it's like what's been going on, for years around this user data and the consumer data, the way it's being collected and being sold on the open. I mean, government agencies are going to data brokers and buying data that apparently either they couldn't get to or it was too hard for them to go through their own maze of government organizations, so they go outside the companies that have been collecting all sorts of data. I mean, there was a story about a company that has been collecting, you go to a fast food line and you go and you speak to that thing and there's a camera. And so apparently there's a company that's been collecting your voice for user recordings, for training AI for voice, and the one that's taking your picture when you pull up to get your food, and it's taking all these face prints and collecting them and selling them on the open market. So up until the last couple of years, nobody was really talking about this, and now they are, and I think that's why you're starting to see companies like Apple starting to figure out, well, how we'll hang our shingle on privacy. It's easier for them to do that because they make their money the vast majority of actually selling stuff, not just selling information, but selling actual products. So,
Sure, and if you link that picture and that audio to a credit card, you've got everything.
yeah. And so I think Google and Facebook are the ones that are playing defensive, and Apple's on the offensive, which would be really interesting to see if they actually do this search engine. That's like, to me at least, it feels like they'd be throwing down the gauntlet against Google and Facebook and who else.
It was a saying.
Are we saying that Apple wants to take the lead in ethics in the industry?
No, I don't agree with that. I think Apple is purely a capitalist company with no social agenda whatsoever, but it serves its purposes to be pro-privacy vis-a-vis Google, because its model doesn't rely on stealing metadata about you across sites, and so it's a highly leveraged, opportunistic position that doesn't go much deeper than the bank account.
That's deep enough.
It's like jujitsu. It's like we can, go this way and proclaim we're bringing more options and more privacy to consumers, which could be true, but it also is taking away the business model of some of their biggest competitors, and it's like a win-win for them, or it could potentially be a win-win, because if consumers see them as the company that's looking out for their data, so to speak, and they're able to monetize and hurt their competitors with that message, why wouldn't they do that?
It's a win for them, even if they don't do it.
They outed themselves recently, along with Google and others, Elon Musk included, in their attitude to their employees and working in the office. All of them. Well, it's like, we don't trust you, effers, to be, you're pretending to work. You're not really working, in Musk's words. Go and pretend to work somewhere else unless you come to the office.
Heifers? Are you talking about a dairy farm?
It's
That's what it is.
basically a feudal, they're all feudal aristocracies lording it over their serfs
But
and you know, playing the king.
unlike a dairy farm, it's not hands-on anymore.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you could get in a lot of trouble for hands-on.
Didn't
Milking.
Apple kind of back down because one of their key guys left or said
Well,
he
they
was going to
haven't
leave?
backed
Yeah,
down.
they postponed
They postponed.
the third stage of their plan.
Yeah, but isn't there, from what I just read today, hasn't there been a COVID spike in America?
Yes, there are
Yes, there is.
spikes, regionally, yes.
So it seems to me that there's a pretty legitimate reason to say, I'm not coming into the office.
Sure. I
I
mean,
think so.
COVID is the outside player in everything.
But I think it
We like
goes.
to pretend it's over, but the virus doesn't read.
But then, Frank, I think that's right. That said, isn't there something enduring about the working experience that COVID has forced on us? Aren't there kind of things you want to keep about that do not,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
He said
There's a
from
lot,
home.
as I would, yes, because I am at home and that's where I do most of my work. And bless you,
Bless you.
and the horse you rode in on. Yes, he said from home.
But isn't it amazing that Apple, Google, and Tesla of all people can't see the upside?
I know.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not
when
sure.
I heard,
I'm not sure that that's why they put this forward. I think it's a higher pay grade than I think we are analyzing at. If we think that they're just missing the point, you know, maybe we're missing the point.
Maybe we are
Tell me
missing the
why.
point because these guys were doing pretty good, had a lot of power and control before the work from home. So
Exactly.
why wouldn't they say, you know what? We should go back to what we had before because we were already the kings. So why should we change anything if we don't have to? This change was forced on us. We didn't say we wanted to do that. We had to do that because of the pandemic.
Yeah, but that, you know, that there are many companies that have prospered in this new reality.
they're still the kings, aren't they? I mean, even though there's been some degradation in their stock prices, they're still the kings.
Yeah, but that
Well, to
degradation.
extend the medieval metaphor, I think what we're really looking at is the introduction of the technology age chastity belt. I think the only way these guys can control their employees is if they're right there. Otherwise, they have to worry that their employees might be talking to the enemy or moonlighting or who knows what else. And I think there's a little paranoia there.
Well, that's trust. The breakdown of trust is endemic, isn't it?
It is.
Did they really trust, or they just had the power to pull things, edicts down? But if they don't want to give up the power along with the money, they want to try to dictate what happens. And the pandemic has been doing all the dictating for the last 2+ years, not the companies. So maybe these guys are seeing, well, maybe if there is an end to the pandemic, let's get back to doing what we do best, dictating.
So I don't know if any of my
Chastity belts.
I don't know if any of my team watch the gang, and if you do, guys, then I apologize ahead for what I'm about to say. But my team's completely distributed, and we're all new to each other. We don't go back a long way. We've known each other for the longest. I think we've really known each other in a work context. In one case, it's 3 years, but mostly it's less than 2 years. And I would say I have a pretty good assessment of every individual and how they spend their time. And I know that for me, the way I spend my time is in spurts, and then the opposite. And I assume everyone else has some element of that, some balance between spurts and non-spurts. And you can totally tell whether somebody's doing anything or not doing anything. So having them in a physical office wouldn't actually you would get nothing more out of them than you already get. They'd still be the same person, except they'd be a little bit less free and have to probably pretend more than they do when they're separate, when they're working from home. So I don't, I think a sophisticated organization like Apple, every manager probably knows his team at that level. I noticed with my oldest son, who's an intern in a startup now, they work in the office 3 days a week and is at home 2 days a week. There's no difference in their productivity.
Your point about the managers and how individual managers know their teams. They have an understanding of the people that work for them, at least in those best companies and best practices. Okay, an example, I was thinking as this conversation was sort of going around, how CNN works with, here's a very big organization, 4,000 employees, with a huge brand new office down at Hudson Yard in New York, with the majority of their people working from home, and on a product that requires great teamwork in order to put things on television. I mean, there's directors at home sitting in their homes with multiple screens directing shows that are being produced at remote locations much of the time. Still, there are a lot of the shows that are back in the studio now, but still the employees aren't. And the managers, because I know a few of them, know who their people are and know what they're doing, and they're still getting their jobs done. And now with the new president, there's all sorts of new things that are coming in that they have to deal with, sort of the licked doctrine, if you will, of the new management of CNN. They're going to have to learn how to deal with, and they're doing it. They're doing it in large part in remote locations.
Yeah, I think that's the direction that this will move, is expertise in this new environment, as opposed to trying to wall it off.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to open up, or if it has, maybe it hasn't yet, open up opportunities for people who otherwise might not be able to get a job because they can't get into an office for whatever reason, whether they're geographically located in an area that makes it impossible for them to move, yet they're a qualified individual who can do a job that a manager wants from a remote location. I think that there's good stuff to be said about it.
There's good stuff to be said about a manager who can pool together a team in this environment, because among other things, that's transferable, as I think somebody was pointing out a little bit earlier. They can pick up that team and move it.
Yeah.
So then it gets into the culture of the company, their place in the impact that the technologies have on trust, morality, etc.
Well, this whole thing has created new corporate cultures.
I think trust and learning and evolving are the keys. If you don't have trust, then it doesn't work. So you've got to give people trust, and people feel empowered. Once they know they're trusted, they feel empowered. Then you've got to have common learning. Like, everyone's off doing stuff. What does it mean? So my Monday management meetings now are not at all operational. They're all, what did we learn last week, and what does it mean we should change? But that affects operation. Yeah, well, operation becomes day to day. There's no reflection in operation usually, but you need to then reflect, and it's really important the whole team learns the same thing, whatever it is, and then it's acting together in the next week of operation. So it's a very different style than when you're all in the office, where operation and reflection happen simultaneously around water coolers. So I have a question for you, Keith. Do you think that your employees feel more likely to be able to be more open in while they're in these remote situations in any conversation that you have
than if you were sitting face to face with them?
I think that's going to be very different depending on the style of leadership. In my case, I'm very vulnerable to my team because I don't want them to think I know everything and that they're just doing what I say. I want them to understand that their job, as much as my job is to make them better, their job is to make me better. Mm-hmm. So we have a very open, quite combative, open conversation, and everyone feels empowered to say what they think anyway, and almost gets punished if they don't. Because
would that happen if you weren't doing it in a remote situation?
I don't think it's not as easy to do it in an office because there's a more obvious hierarchy in an office based on where people sit.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, it's different leaders would do that differently. I mean, I don't get the impression that Elon Musk
listens.
Well, I think he does actually want people to stand up to him, and he probably rewards them when they do. But he gives the impression of being fairly dictatorial. I actually don't think he really is, actually. But he hasn't perfected how to. That's one of my kids bouncing a ball.
Oh, good. I thought it sounded like Elon Musk walking down the hall.
Yeah, coming after you.
You know, Frank, I think you bring up something kind of interesting. I think that what you were getting at is that the digital access that we have to each other through Zoom, through whatever, is kind of like a leveling the playing field. It's a kind of equalizing, and it does sort of remove some of that inherent hierarchy of being in an office of, which office did you walk from? Did you have the office that you walked from the, into the conference room, or, are you down in the, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it really sort of democratizes. And I think it helps to equalize and to have voices more heard.
I think Tina, it's more than equalize. I'll give you an example. You're absolutely right, but I think it's more than that. I have noticed on a couple of online panels that I've moderated, where I've invited people to come on as guests on the panel who don't necessarily sort of push their ideas out as forcefully or as vocally when I'm sitting there talking to them, but I know inherently that they've got these great ideas. And then in the digital domain, when we do these things, they are more vocal about their ideas. They are more inclusive. They seem to be more involved in the conversation. It's almost like I'm shy when I'm right there, but I'm less shy when I'm online. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just noticed
it makes a lot of sense, because there are all of these subtle social cues that intimidate, invite, encourage, discourage people, and you just filter out a lot of bandwidth of communication and make it much more direct. The other thing is geographic. Do I summon you to my office? Do you summon me to your office? Do we meet in a neutral conference room? Do we meet at the water cooler? There's a whole lot going on in terms of status, in terms of how people occupy and share spaces, that all disappears when you're just in a little window on a multi-window screen.
Well, the fear of trying to intimidate someone because you've brought them onto your playing field goes away.
Yeah. We use this app called, it's called Around. Around.co is the URL. And every team member has a digital room on Around. And you can see if they're in the room. Their icon pops up if they're in the room. And you can, we use Slack as the glue. And in Slack, we say, jump into Around, ? And if someone says yes, then we're talking to each other. It's a bit less cumbersome than Zoom. You don't have to, it's not like there's a whole rigmarole of setting up a call. It's just like spontaneous and instant. It's little round circles that come on your screen, so it doesn't take up the whole screen. But you can share documents and stuff. It works really well just for that, what Michael was saying. One of my team members, we did an investor pitch the other day, and one of my team members said, "Can I speak to you?" So he jumped in around, and I made a joke on the call that we already had succession planning. This guy is like in his late 30s, and I'm not in my late 30s, and it was just a joke.
Well, how did he tell you that he wanted to speak to you? Did he send
Slack.
you a text? Okay.
No, on Slack. And so he jumped in and he said, "Keith, I just want to say, are you saying something when you say this succession thing? Is there something you're saying?" And he kind of called me out. And I said, and I realized that for him, that was like a statement that was scary in a way. Things, that's just one example of how technology can really help you communicate and move on and explain things and be spontaneous when it needs to be, or planned when it needs to be. What
we're saying here makes me wonder why it is that the big guys at those companies are not as inviting towards having the out of office experience. It makes me wonder, because it seems that we're in, I don't want to speak for everyone in the group, but it sounds like we're in agreement here on this.
There is, but I think there is something lost. And I think that senior executive managers sense that there's something lost, even without data, just by the serendipitous meeting of people in corridors, on the way to the lunchroom, out of the lunchroom, at beer busts. There are connections that are made and opportunities that are discovered in that kind of high bandwidth communication that you will never get online. Where even if you reduce the friction to what Keith described with Circle, you're still not quite as spontaneous as you would be all in the same place, where things can happen differently. And I think older established managers are missing that.
I felt that way in the beginning of my sort of I'm over the hill status as a senior manager. I felt exactly that way, Michael. And as time has gone on, and I've found that I'm still contributing and doing a lot of things, I feel less that way.
Yeah, because I think that approach does not take into account human creativity and just human ability to react to different tools, basically, different opportunities.
The people who do the worst with it, it's almost like the more senior you are and the more you're used to having assistants, the less comfortable you are. I have one team member who's been very senior for many years, and he's used to having assistants do stuff, and using digital tools and doing a lot of stuff for himself is a whole learning curve. That's much harder. So I think the other thing is, if you're more like military style, command and control style, that is hard as well. It doesn't really work if that's what you like.
Look what it's doing for Putin.
Yeah.
Well, he's got, blood cancer. So there's that.
Yeah. Look what it's doing for the media that's sending out this message that he has blood cancer.
Yeah.
Hey,
do you believe that? I don't.
I don't either. Honestly, I don't.
You would see some kind of signs of it, but can I suggest a pivot here? Because
as long as it is an ending pivot.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask.
Hitting the exits.
Yeah.
Is she calling a top?
She's leaning out.
Sounds like she was already on the outs anyway. It seems like her level of influence had waned pretty substantially over the last couple of years.
Well, there was a story I read today that implied that Meta going forward is going to require someone like Sheryl Sandberg to make it actually work.
Yeah,
I
because
thought
look
that
at-
was
Sorry.
that's it. Go ahead.
I was going to say real briefly, it seems like she added at least a patina of whole product to Facebook.
But apparently she wasn't involved in any, I guess, significant level in all the decisions to start, going from traditional Facebook to the metaverse and all, that goes with that. Sounds like she was kind of shut out of that stuff.
There's
It's
also a
been-
recent story that there is an investigation in her using company resources for her wedding. So I don't know what to make of that.
Oh,
But I think if you stand back, you've got to say that she has been, driving the ship for quite a few years and allowing Zuckerberg to be who he is, which is fascinated by product and tech. And when called upon, having to make public statements, but really that's not his preferred theater.
yeah.
And
She was
so
the beard.
Yeah, she's run the ship, and Dan Rose also left a couple of years ago. That probably was really calling the top. He's a savvy guy. He's now at Cotu, the venture fund Cotu, and does really good tweet streams about his time at Facebook, by the way. And then Mike Schroepfer left, who is the CTO. He went on the record this week focusing on the merging of the two AI departments at Facebook. That's part of the reorg that's provoked by her leaving. The new COO is the advertising guy. So you get the sense of a Facebook that's very much not a finished product anymore. It's almost like Facebook's been a finished product twice, and now it isn't again. Before Instagram and WhatsApp, it was kind of a finished product, but it was dying. Then it became a new finished product with WhatsApp and Instagram and mobile, and that's kind of now troubled by Apple. And now it's trying to build a new product, and it's nowhere near finished, and it's a whole new team. And they're going to have to shore up advertising in the meantime to make sure they can fund whatever it is they're spending billions every quarter on Meta.
Well, and he's already said that that he didn't expect that Meta would be really, I don't want to say profitable because they are profitable, but was actually going to be a big part of the company's DNA for another 5 years. And so that seems like a long time, and it's in digital world. And I don't know, and with these people leaving, it feels like maybe there wasn't a universal understanding of how Meta was going to actually work in the Facebook world.
Well, because Meta, technically speaking, Meta doesn't work yet. There's too many challenges, unknown solutions to too many challenges. So in a way, Facebook is AOL in both the good and the bad way. In the good way, it's got a captive audience that earns it a lot of money, and that is still going up, not shrinking. So Facebook has to preserve that version of Facebook has to be preserved as long as it keeps sending money. Meanwhile, they got to figure out this new thing, and I don't think that is even a 5-year project. It may not even be a 10-year project. So they may fail because the timeline is very long.
In that new thing, it's pretty clear that Apple is entering that space in a big way over the next 2 years. So they're not going to have a clear shot. They're going to have a very competitive shot.
Yep, I agree with that. And Zuckerberg, probably, this is his sweet spot. This is kind of who he is. He's comfortable in the unknown, figuring it out. Sheryl is comfortable in the known, milking it for money.
I think you need both, don't you? Seems to me.
Yeah.
But it would also give the impression that maybe Facebook is just going to put itself on autopilot while they concentrate on on developing Meta and which is this long view. And I don't know. I mean, maybe you can do that, but doesn't the product then go stale? Doesn't
Exactly. I don't think you can do that. I think that would be wrong if that's what they did. But that's just me. Look, there's a lot of things going on out there in the meta world, and even in the sort of adjacent meta world that are just sort of beginning to bubble up. But as you were saying, it just doesn't seem like it's gelling quite right yet. Although there's an interesting thing that, Unreal Engine just signed a deal with, I want to say Audi or Volvo, one of those two companies, to create photorealistic multi-dimensional imagery for the screens inside the car. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It's not exactly metaverse, doesn't require a headset or anything like that, but it creates a new environment inside a car. And imagine that environment inside an electric car. That takes it a step further. So that to me is like, inching towards usefulness. And it's funny, I also saw an interesting thing Scoble had put in his LinkedIn feed, I guess it was yesterday, talking about some really high, very good. He described it as a very good use of a meta technology for the workplace, for people to use to work in an environment. And it didn't look like the glasses that he was wearing was a face mask. It was a pair of glasses with almost like the original Google Glass design. There's new stuff coming. And of course, Apple's got the new headset coming. So things are happening in the world, but I don't see it happening quite so accessibly to the consumer.
Right.
It'll take a while. It'll take a while, as any radically new technology does. But I think there's an interesting dynamic within Facebook. It is true that senior management is looking to the future, to the 3D environment. But you have classic Facebook chugging along as the main revenue. But classic Facebook is also the primary target for government inquiry. So they can't quite neglect it. And you're the B team here. You just keep Facebook chugging along while we go work on this new thing, because classic Facebook is still a big target for inquiry, and it's going to keep coming to the attention of senior management. They can't afford to ignore it.
Yeah.
Grant,
Hello.
hi.
Hey.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, man, Rafael Nadal just won his 14th French Open. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. 14 of, I'm astounded. Oh yeah, and I've also been thinking about, I saw this article, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, about jobs. People seem to be finding jobs on Slack more than they're finding it on LinkedIn, or the trend is Slack people, because of these private networks and collaboration spaces, they seem to be a new channel for people finding work. And it's apparently starting to rival LinkedIn. And I thought that was really fascinating. Then, of course, I started thinking, well, what is that? Going back to the data privacy, what is all that potential interaction in like a Slack channel and all the data that's being created? How safe and private is that chatter? Or will that also be eventually sold for data brokers who are looking for insights on, the job market? I know that was kind of scattered, but that's what I was literally thinking about as I was thinking about congratulating Rafael Nadal.
Also, didn't Clubhouse announce that they were about to lay off a whole bunch of employees and change their business model in such a way that they would head more towards a more, it almost felt like a Clubhouse version of LinkedIn. Has anyone seen that story? Does that sound familiar to anybody?
I've heard about the layoffs.
What's Clubhouse
Yeah.
again?
There you go.
Club what?
I haven't thought
So
about Clubhouse.
I'll spend a little time trying to find that, and I'll post it on my my newsletter tomorrow. But there's something going on there that doesn't sound dissimilar to what you were just talking about with Slack.
Yeah.
And again, I think it opens up that privacy issue and the sale of information to other parties. I think that there's a lot of that to consider.
By the way, I saw Mark talk.
T.me also, t.me/Gillmor gang. That would be great.
Okay.
T.me/Gillmor gang. I was going to say, I saw Mark Andreessen again on a live video stream for the second week in a row with these two young guys who fielded questions to him. And it was about an hour long, and he was at home, incredibly lucid and free thinking, not on Clubhouse, and more or less close to what Steve is doing with the Substack Live idea, except he wasn't using Substack. But it came out on Twitter, and then I clicked on it and went through to it. So I do think that there's we're just at the very beginning of what the ability to communicate ideas and engage people is just at the very beginning of all the tool set. And I think Clubhouse and even this LinkedIn Clubhouse clone and even Twitter Spaces, it's like the first moon landing. It's not what Musk and Bezos are doing with spaceships today. It's just the first steps, those things. And the second steps are already happening.
Well, just to tie the two together, to me, Clubhouse and Spaces and, so-called live audio is a piece of the architecture that is subsumed by a Substack.
Hmm.
And as a result, I think what we're seeing is we're seeing the concept of the creator economy, I think, has been sort of floating through this conversation by not being talked about. Namely, what we're talking about is an enterprise layer of communications and authority and trust, all those things. The one place that people have to go to learn how to function in an enterprise context with this new sort of digital dashboard approach is Substack, or something that gives you the tools. It's kind of like when Apple basically empowered everybody to be able to push one button and out came a printed version of whatever they were working on. Taking it away from the assistants and from the architecture of the corporate environment, and just basically saying, here, no, this is just a menu item now. I think that we're going to see that that's what's going on with Substack. And, whether or not, there was a very interesting quote. How I got to it was also, to my mind, very interesting, which was, it was a conversation between 2 or 3 Substack authors. Casey Newton would be one of them. Eric Newcomer would be another, and some other people whose names I didn't recognize. But at one point, I think it was Casey Newton suggested, sort of brought it up on his own, which led me to believe, maybe he's worried about this. He said he wasn't particularly worried about Substack succeeding or failing, because he has an existing relationship with Stripe. You want to unpack that a little bit, Keith?
Well, Stripe is actually a key part of the Substack stack.
And Twitter Spaces as well.
Yeah. So Stripe basically, I don't know, we're all old enough to remember when you used to pay with PayPal on websites. And the experience was that you would say pay with PayPal and you'd get taken from the website you're into this whole PayPal environment, do some stuff and then go back, which is still the case, by the way.
I still get that a lot.
They still do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But with Stripe, it's completely built in. There's no friction. You just click and pay. And if you've got a Stripe account that already has a credit card in, it's seamless.
Yeah. And if you have WordPress, which everybody does because it's open source,
Yeah.
you put those two together and you're a long way down the road toward what Substack provides.
Exactly. I use WordPress as my kind of integration center for everything I do.
Yeah, it's too hard.
No kidding.
My opinion right now, it's like Jesus. But that doesn't mean that the middle of this layer, the Stripe layer, isn't going to become the arbiter of what jumps from consumer to enterprise.
I think that's right. And the interesting thing is what you said, Steve. So I use Review to put my newsletters together by dragging in individual stories because it's
Twitter Review, yes.
Twitter Review. Then I copy and paste that into Substack for emailing the newsletter to subscribers because Substack has a better metrics and analytics than Review for that. So I've gone back to Substack for emailing and seeing who clicks on what and everything. And then I use WordPress as like the permanent URL. That was theweek.com. But it's just a landing page for historical reference that will last forever. And
How do you cut and paste a full review, a newsletter into Substack?
I preview it as an online.
Command C on the Mac.
Yeah, no, but I preview it in Review. There's a thing saying online preview.
Oh, yeah.
I copy that.
Okay.
And then you can paste that in anywhere. In my case, I paste it into Medium first because Medium's got a better paste experience. So I paste it into Medium. It's like all these tools do one thing well and none of them do everything. So
yeah, I was doing that for a while and pasting it into Medium and I just got tired of it.
But that's Steve's point, which is at some point, someone's going to do all these things well. That's the product, really. If you take all these disparate things, it's what I call the unborn child. Every bit of the product's already there. It's just not in one place.
Yeah.
Well, not going back to too far. Let's go back to the beginning of the show. The whole concept
I think in a way Keith already has. We've gone to whole product.
Well, that was Dennis who went.
I know, but Keith describing the product that doesn't exist, made of all the parts that do exist.
Yes,
turning it into a whole product.
I think that's a very perceptive analysis.
Can I already?
How dare you predict the future like that, Michael? I'm shocked.
I'm going to predict the future too and say the title of this episode is since it's either going to be 2 or 3 words. I'm going to guess that maybe whole product would be a good title for this particular.
That occurred to me, but then.
But then you said it.
Yeah, because I said
that's a sneak peek problem.
I didn't even bring that up. So wait a minute.
Do we still do sneak peeks? I haven't seen one in a while.
I don't know.
We do.
The queen of sneak peeks is right here.
We do. We've been
doing deep peaks, which is
some deep peaks.
Which is no. Just we've gone beyond. We've actually acquired one of the Twitter services, which will be thrown away once Musk closes, which is the
Twitter Blue.
Twitter Blue has this ability for us to be able to post beyond 2 minutes and 5 seconds, which is
Oh, so you guys signed up for Twitter Blue?
We
yeah,
did.
it was easy. It was like having a Stripe account.
How much is that a month?
$3.
$3 or $4. something.
$3. $2.99.
Well, that'll help
And you
Elon.
post
'Cause-
10 minutes, Brent.
Yeah, I mean, Brent,
Big line
it's
item.
ideal for your what you call sneak peeks.
Not really. The eyeballs just aren't there for Twitter.
Well, there you go. Okay, once around the table, and we're out of here. Let's start with Dennis Pombriant.
Oh, well, nice to talk about domestic stuff for a change, and nobody mentioned war and peace, and that's a wonderful. I feel light because of it.
Although I do enjoy my Tolstoy from time to time.
I do too. I think whole food, whole wheat, something.
Michael Markman.
In the cultural world, I just watched the new American Masters episode on PBS, which is about Joseph Papp and the Public Theater. Marvelous man, marvelous experience, and is superbly well-produced documentary. Highly recommend it. Joe Papp, A Life in 5 Acts on PBS.
Frank Radis, can you give us what's on the top of your hit parade in the stream wars?
The top of my hit parade in the streaming wars is that someone has recently announced that the idea that I talk about having sort of a one-stop shop for going to find any program on any service at any time and have it automatically charged to your credit card is actually happening. So that's becoming a thing. But the thing that I wanted to talk about other than that was that this is the week that the January 6th committee will be in prime time, starting on Thursday. I think is going to be interesting.
Why?
Why not?
Oh, the indictments look pretty good.
Yeah,
Mueller report turned out not interesting.
that was Mueller.
Yeah.
Let's remember that the Mueller report went through the bar filter, who completely defanged it, neutralized it, neutered it, and lied about it. So by the time it showed up in television terms, it was presented by a very old man who had seemed completely demoralized by what had happened to him. This is a different story. This is that's going to be made by the people who created the information.
And I think that, the fact that they're going to premiere it on Thursday at 8 p.m. Right in the heart of prime time says they've got something that they think is going to work. It's going to make people take notice. And I believe that. And I'm looking forward to it.
Sure, because another distinction between the Mueller report. The Mueller report was created for text. This is being created for television, and it will appear as a TV show, not as a 500-page document.
Okay, so those are two good reasons to tune in. At what it'll be what, a 2-hour show?
I don't know how long the show is going to be.
Well, let's say 3 hours, and we'll call it
show. You guys are
You know what?
calling
I have a sense. I have a feeling. If I were producing it, I would make this opening act 1 hour, and I would, and I would then build. No, I would. It won't be a hearing. It's not going to be a hearing. The first one. It's going to be a presentation. So I think they can do it in an hour. In prime time.
Is Dick Wood producing this? I don't. You guys make it sound like it's a TV show here.
No, they aren't going to have it. It would be great.
Thursday night, so that's a good point.
I usually watch Law
I
and
heard
Order.
one of the cable commentators talk about it in terms of the opening argument in a jury trial.
Yes, and
I
think that.
And then they're going to go into stuff that's going to be more detailed and boring, and then they'll come back with another primetime show that will be the closing. But the big bang is going to be the opening. This is going to be, of all of the sessions, this is going to be the one that gets the most attention and creates the most impression.
So,
If
so
they have
this
to
is
do it.
this is the order part for those of you who are used to watching Law and Order.
Can we
Dum,
get them
dum.
to do the sound like, that right as it begins, that
Yeah,
Boo, boo, boo,
we have
boo,
two
boo,
Yeah.
boo,
two versions of that same sound
boo,
that sound completely dissimilar. But Frank, can you do this sound? And
Pretty good.
More
and
reserve. More
Brent,
reserve.
can you do your version?
no, not after that.
So you're going to concede? I thought
Yes.
yours was.
DJ Brent,
had
come
to-
on,
Come on, let's hear
man.
it.
In the criminal justice system, there are two equal. That's it. I got it. That's it.
Let's
Okay.
press forward.
Keith Chair.
Well, I think Apple has got to be on your mind tomorrow's morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then second after that, I truly hope that guns and women's rights dominate every Democrat's spoken word for the next 6 months and not the January 6th event. I think,
It's good that you make that point. There was another shooting today, which just it's heartbreaking. It's just horrible that
Where was
the
this one?
Republicans,
Pennsylvania.
actually,
Pennsylvania.
Oh, South Philly. What was that?
Oh, yeah.
Last
Philadelphia.
night or something?
I didn't
two
begin with-
women were killed. And it's horrible that the Republicans and that the NRA have this power and position to be able to stop anything from happening. And it's imperative, Keith, that be at the tip of everyone's tongue right now, and the Democrats. I agree.
The key is 80% of Americans want tougher gun rules, and a roughly similar number want women's rights. So why wouldn't you go with those two issues?
I completely agree with you, but I would like to point out that there is an intersectionality. The enemies of gun safety legislation and the enemies of women's rights are the people who caused the January 6th rout,
Yeah.
attempted coup. These are all interlinked. We
Yeah.
have a rogue Republican Party that is bent on minority rule and dominating the majority. And if the Democrats can articulate it well and show the linkages with all these ideas, I think they
Yeah.
have something to talk about. So
Well,
I agree with you.
you're
Wow. You know what?
You're illustrating
You're-
the difficulty of separating them that Keith is talking about. So how do you, Keith and Michael, how do you litigate this? So
I personally would, if I was leading the Democratic Party's strategy, which I'm not, but if I was, I would relegate the January 6th stuff to like 0.1% of airtime. And I would elevate guns and women's rights to 90.9% of airtime, 99.9% of airtime. And I would build a whole manifesto and agenda around individual freedom to live for victims of guns, and freedom to choose for women. And that would be my two big issues.
okay, good. Michael,
This is a whole
product. Hang on,
You
Frank.
do it.
hang on, Frank. I want to hear what Michael says.
I think the story that the committee is going to tell is not going to be the story of 1/6. The story they're going to tell is the story of an attempted coup that began long before the election and is continuing today. And that's part of the linkage between the big picture of what the right wing is attempting and the specifics that Keith is talking about, which are foremost in people's mind, which are gun safety and women's rights. So I
think Michael's right.
think it will come together, but I think in all communications, you have to go to the audience first. What is it that's on people's minds? What do you get people to resonate to?
Okay, I got it. Dennis, go ahead.
So I think guns and women's rights, yes, obviously, but I think Michael's right. You got to show a linkage between those things and the chaos that you get if the people who are opposed to guns or who are in favor of guns and opposed to women's rights get their way.
Okay, Frank, last thought.
I was just going to say it's a whole product issue.
I'm gonna maybe for
Nice
next
try,
time,
Frank.
And scene.
maybe this is for next time, but a lot of what lies behind what I say is I actually don't think most people give a shit about democracy. I think they care about their life more than democracy. And they'd even settle for dictatorship if it produced a better life.
Oh, God.
Well, something that
Yeah.
Biden's picked up on from JFK is the importance of using the words liberty and freedom frequently. It was in JFK's time, he was the chief spokesman for and promoter of freedom. And you can interpret that your own way, and
Yeah.
everybody does. But I think that's one thing that's been missing for decades recently. I think freedom gets equated with guns, and that's not the right equation.
Freedom from guns is the key.
I think we just opened a very big topic that we can't explore in the closing minutes of the show, but it's an important set of linkages worth deconstructing. I just don't think we have time for it today because
Well,
We don't.
if Thursday is any measure of the success of the committee, we'll find out whether they have figured out how to talk about it.
Closing thoughts for you, Steve?
I know what we'll talk about next time.
yeah, WWDC.
I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
And thanks to Tina. Thank you, Tina.
Lucy
Thank
clap.
you. All right. Great show, guys. I completely enjoyed this. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.